Welcome to Defend's weekly Threat Insights group discussion. So I hope everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda. There was a lot of great demos shared that I would hope that everyone's looked at in advance, because we're not going to spend time watching them as a group. So please do so after the call if you haven't had a chance to. Let's jump right into our top agenda item, which is follow-up from previous discussions. So Jonathan, you were looking into breaking changes, I believe, was what the top one is, right?
Yeah, the main thing I was looking for was on that API that we were that issue. It looked like we were doubling up. That got overwritten by another change, so that's no longer in place. It's no. So yeah, everything is either an on or off. So it looks like we should be good to go.
Okay, and no one else has identified or brought to my attention any other concerns around breaking changes that would require us to be targeting 13.0 instead of 12.10. That was the only one that had been discussed. So if anyone can think of one, let's bring it up. Thanks, Jonathan. Go ahead, Subhash.
I'm not sure if my CSV export is related, but that might require some either replanning or maybe we drop it.
So let's get to that one. Breaking changes meaning that we are providing functionality to our customers today that we will be requiring extensive updates from them to continue using. Like if we were to, I think the one example that came up so far was that we were going to change the name of an API. So customers who'd be using that API directly would need to be informed of that so they can update their references to it. So we try and bucket those types of, yeah. So what you're talking about, Subhash, is new development, and I'm wanting to get to that, and I'm concerned about it. So because it is one of the items that is being tracked as part of our 12.10 goals for a customer that will remain nameless for anonymity's sake. Okay, but good clarification. So again, breaking changes, I think there's a link in this agenda somewhere of how that is defined and why we put it into major milestones like 13.0. So the next agenda item I added, Sam went on leave for a week. So he's out this week and he's been working very closely with Subhash and with Aviel. Hi, Aviel, thank you for joining us. And he gave us a very thorough Word document that is linked to down in the demo part of this agenda, as well as a video demo of the progress that he's made. So after going through that document and the feedback from Sam, one item that's really jumped out as a feature that we had previously said was sort of a stretch or a nice to have to MVC, but over the course of the last couple of weeks, Matt has had new information come to him around problems that this could create. So this is around supporting multiple dismissals of a vulnerability on this dashboard page. It's something that was added to the security dashboard in, I think, 12.8 was what Sam said. There was some misunderstanding around the need for it for this MVC. So Matt, do you want to elaborate on I think it's all here in the document for the most part, but
yeah, so it's kind of an interesting quirk of timing and a byproduct of what we're going to be doing with the first-class vulnerabilities. So if you haven't been following some of these issues, there is an interesting, I think what is technically a defect, but seems like a feature specifically with DAST findings. The way that they behave today is if you dismiss one DAST finding that has that's tagged with a particular identifier, which is the CVE field in the current JSON reports, it's not actually a CVE number. It's just kind of anything goes in there. Well, for DAST, it is putting in, it's just a number that identifies the particular ZAP module that detected it. When you dismiss something from a dashboard, if it is a DAST detection, everything that shared that same identifier gets dismissed. Now, the reason why that seems like a feature is that DAST is one of the noisier scanners and will often produce multiples of the same type finding. There won't be a way to quickly kind of get rid of a lot of this noise for customers. I would say that the DAST false positives and noise is probably one of the single biggest complaints we get in terms of the secure scan products, and it's something that team is actively working to improve. If we were to still have the multi-select, it would at least give users the ability to sort of quickly use the basic filters and dismiss pages of them at a time. By moving to the first class vulnerabilities, my understanding is that because we are now tracking everything in the database, that behavior is going to go away anyway for DAST. So it's going to be you select one, you dismiss one. So we're taking it from accidental bulk dismissal to you have to now drill in individually to each page for vulnerability. So the net result is it's going to make the workflow much less efficient for people, and it's going to be really, really painful until we can get this multi-select functionality back out. So this is kind of the fallback because of the change in the DAST behavior. Any questions on that? There's a lot of talking.
Minor question, what's a ZAP module?
Oh, ZAP, I think it stands for something, but it's the ZAP proxy. It's an OWASP tool that really underpins the DAST scanning. So when you hear DAST, it is the ZAP collection of scanners.
Okay, I think I'm going to have to read some more about that.
Yeah, it was what was selected to back that particular scan type, and it is, DAST in general can tend to be kind of noisy for things like that. So I'll give a really specific example that I was given that I liked. So because it is doing dynamic scanning against your running application, let's say that you had a misconfigured header. Every single request that the DAST scanner tries to make for every endpoint, for every parameter change, is going to give you that same header error. If you make 5,000 different requests, you get 5,000 of the same error.
Got it.
Which is like a real thing with the DAST scans today. So before, if you dismissed one, the other 4,999 would just magically disappear. Technically, that is a defect. But you can see how now going from that model to you don't even get the modal to dismiss, you actually have to click, you will go into an individual page, you would have to look at it, dismiss it, come back out. That's going to be very problematic. So at least the multi-dismiss would let you, take care of what's on the screen all at once.
Thank you.
So for the sake of time and getting to all of our agenda, let's keep talking about this, but move forward. Alexander has been looking at this from a UI perspective or front end perspective, and there is back end work associated with this as well. So I know we've already got our plates really full. I think we need to be really realistic about whether this additional work, as well as some of the other challenges that we've been encountering over the course of the development of this milestone, if we're going to have to start to discuss what we can shave off or what we can realistically deliver in 12.10. I don't want to say this with looking at Kyla's face in the video, and potentially if we had to move this to 13.0, what that would mean. So that is, a scenario we want to try and avoid. But again, that's where we're at right now. So Alex, is there any questions? Sorry,
yes. Did I misunderstand, or you said that there's backend work involved in this?
That's correct. So
what is the backend?
Aviel is here, and you've already spoken to this in a Slack conversation. So Aviel, could you answer that question for Savash?
This is for the dismissal, right? For the multi-dismissal.
The multi-dismissal on the dashboard page.
Yes, but we said that we're gonna use the old one, the REST API for this or not. Did I misunderstand that?
No, I think that is the plan, and it looks like initially I was thinking we'd need to have a new GraphQL mutation because I didn't know that we had a dismissal for a REST endpoint dismissal for standalone vulnerabilities. I thought we only had one for findings, but it looks like from item 1A here that we do have a dismissal REST endpoint for standalone vulnerabilities. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Okay. So in that case, adding a project fingerprint to the existing vulnerability GraphQL schema is pretty trivial. I can get an MR up for that today. And that seems like the fastest way forward. So I think doing that and using the existing REST endpoint is the way to go.
Okay.
Thanks, Savash. I was behind in that conversation, so that's great. Alexander, I wanted to let you have a chance to verbalize some of the investigation that you've been doing, unless folks just want to read it here on the document and we can move forward, but you've been looking into this for half a day now.
Yeah, Aviel brought up the main point of the REST endpoint does exist. and that the GraphQL schema currently in place to get vulnerabilities returns the report type, the ID, though not what the endpoint expects from the ID. So there's a little bit of modification there, but the project fingerprint is the most important thing that I am missing that I can tell at this moment for this endpoint to be able to dismiss vulnerabilities. So that'd be great to get that, but then otherwise I've just been sort of hacking and slashing, and there's a nice little screenshot up there of what I've got so far. The checkboxes seem to be working. It's just that dismiss button doesn't do anything yet. In time.
Awesome.
I don't want to misguide here, but I think the project fingerprint is already included in the backend response. So we can take a look to that later if you want.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to be wrong.
Because the it's already using the project fingerprint, the current dashboard. So yeah, we can take a look later.
Yeah, definitely. I may have missed something. Thank you.
So it sounds like despite this new addition of scope for this release that you guys are jumping on this very quickly, and we're able to find paths forward that are, potentially going to require us to come back and revisit this in a future iteration, but they'll let us move forward with the least amount of effort. I think Aviel, you also brought up the concern around the pace of getting things reviewed. I know that you were speaking from the back end at that time, but I don't think it's specific to just the back end. So, just using this opportunity as a reminder to folks, if you can get small MRs submitted early, it will reduce that risk, because I do think that is one of our biggest outstanding risks right now in achieving this goal.
Lindsay, team,
yes.
I guess, quick question on that. So if there are items that are complete and the review is what takes a while, and they do end up passing that window for the final release train, are those things that could actually still go out a week or two later in a subsequent release train?
I believe the answer is yes, but I'm not sure if the customer that we're targeting is self-hosted or not, because that would be the big constraint there. So we released to production for customers on .com. I think twice a week was what we just discussed in the staff meeting yesterday. It would just be, and I think we talked about this with a smaller group, that the customer we're talking about is self-hosted, so they'd only get the monthly rollouts of updates. I don't know if there's a way with that particular customer. I don't know. I'm getting creative in public and I shouldn't do that. So
yeah, the reason I was just inquiring is if it's a matter of letting them know they can pull the 12.10 release, but then watch out for this particular update being very, very clear what would come in a subsequent, I don't know, we refer to those as patch releases, incremental releases. That may be acceptable for some of these things that are technically parity features. Just want to throw that out there as an option.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the GitLab process of patches how self-hosted customers get those types of updates and how frequently. So we can work on finding an answer for that. I don't know, Wayne or anyone else on the call have, Aviel, anyone have any insight into that? Just looking at anyone who's been here longer than me. Philippe.
I'll follow
Andy.
up.
Okay.
Kyle, I see you're on the account. I can follow up with you and Chloe to see if that's even a possibility for some of these.
Okay, thank you.
Great question though. Okay, so moving on, there's a lot of demos.
Lindsay.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, but just before we move on, if we're going to use the project fingerprint for this, we should track that we are changing how we associate findings and feedback in maybe 12.10, maybe 13.0. And so project fingerprint is going to be what we need to use this week, but a few weeks from now, it might be location fingerprint. I'm going to try and include all the things we might need for now and for the future from the back end, so at least we'll have them available. And then if we need to make front end changes, we can do it when that merges.
And Aviel, you'll update this issue that you created yesterday to reflect the change in direction from a back end that we described?
Yes.
Great. And yes, it's a good reminder that, these items that we're sort of putting off, we should be creating future issues to make sure that we're tracking them. I know I created a number of those yesterday that we'll be reviewing with Matt, hopefully targeting 13.0, but this is another example. So thanks, Aviel. Okay. I love the pre-recorded demos. This is fantastic. I'm not going to spend time right now looking at any of them, but this is an opportunity for anyone who did watch them to ask questions.
Yeah, I'm going to second that. It's great to see so many demos of things. I haven't viewed any yet. Shame on me, but I definitely will in the next 24 hours. Great stuff. Thanks, everybody.
So, you know, both Savash and Alexander and Jonathan and Alexander. Is anything any of you guys want to highlight, or does anyone have questions for the 3 individuals who submitted demos? I had one item, but I don't want to be the one who talks all the time.
Yeah, Savash, in Sam's video, sorry, I'm asking you about Sam's video. In Sam's video, he was talking about the difference between like the project, the group, and the instance dashboard, and the work on each of those. Currently, for the multi-dismiss, I have done it on the project dashboard. Will it be easily replicated on the other 2? Because I see the other 2 currently in master are not using GraphQL.
Before you answer that question, Shavas, is it required on those other 2 dashboards, Matt? We talked about this yesterday, and I thought at the very least for this MVC, we were going to target the project level dashboard, but adding the multi-dismissal to the instance and the group dashboards was not as urgent.
I would call those nice to have if they're sort of for free with the work done here, but the project dashboard is going to be the most critical. So
nice.
I didn't want to cut off Savash's answer, but I just wanted to set the expectation of priority going into that. We don't need to do workarounds for things that we might have a little bit more time for.
Great question, whether we need to do something or not. Savash, now, I'm sorry, I interrupted you as well.
No, it's so as far as I know, so we are done with the project dashboard. It's on master, and then I'm working on the group dashboard. It's gonna be merged as soon as the pipeline gets green. So I got the approval, and then there is this instance level which I started, but not yet submitted the merge request. But so if for instance, for the filters, we have a reusable component, and if and adding that, it's a trivial work to multiple dashboards. So if we have a reusable component, I think it should be very easy to just include in the dashboard. But yeah, let's talk about this later in the offline, not offline, but online, but private, so that we can figure out. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Cool. So the one item that I had was, Alexander, I was watching your video this morning and you were wondering about the dismissed filter that was on the right-hand side. I think that was your video. Maybe it was Savash's. Nope, it was Savash's. Sorry, Savash. The video that you shared here, you had a moment where you're wondering if we should re-add that filter. That's by design to not have that there. The customer can use the drop-down that has the various states instead. So I just went and re-reviewed Andy's original mocks to confirm that we should be leaving that off. Okay, cool. I am terrified about this next topic, but Savash, go ahead. Talk to us about what's going on with the CSV export, because this is next to standalone vulnerabilities. This is the other big request of our customer that we're trying to meet the goals of. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I've been working on this for a month now. I finally got the MR approved, but then today realized that. So with the latest changes, now we have 2 dashboards. One is the GraphQL dashboard, and then the other one is the old REST API dashboard. And this button was added for the old one, so for the REST API, which means that as soon as we remove the feature flag, it's not going to be visible anymore, to my understanding. And it's not working properly from the backend side, at least on the current branch, it's not working properly because the moment I disable the feature flag, the first class vulnerabilities feature flag, first of all, there's no way for me to get the button because it's the new dashboard that's get displayed. And second of all, it's using the REST API, the button. itself. So it's the old endpoint that works. And the backend, for some reason, it doesn't work when the feature flag is disabled. So I think there is a confusion here. Was I clear, or?
Your explanation was clear to me. So this is work that we started with 2 brand new developers when things were very in flux in this dashboard. So this was a risk we knew we were entering when we started working on this download, and it sounds like it went the worst direction. So, you know, exposing the button on the other side of the feature flag from a UI perspective, correct me wrong, that's not a huge change. It's getting your MR out there and approved again, but then investigating the problems that you were seeing with the data that was actually part of that export under the new first class vulnerabilities object model, that's where the bigger risk lies, right? Well, I don't want to say bigger because again, that risk of getting an MR pushed through is substantial, but am I understanding that correctly, Savash?
Yeah, that's correct. So I didn't know if I need to go ahead and then use the button in the new dashboard, or because if we include that.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So if we include that, I'm not sure that I think the backend uses the old. So it's not using GraphQL. So I'm not sure if those are connected. So we might be exporting different data because we're not using GraphQL for exporting the data. Am I correct? Anybody here?
Yeah, so actually, since we are working on project dashboard, once you start the export, you're gonna export all vulnerabilities found for a given project. This is nothing that it's related to GraphQL or anything like it, because you're exporting everything. You're not exporting the things that you filtered, but in the first release, we're going to export everything with all the fields that were required. So I believe, and it's not working without feature flag, because like it's only will be working with first class vulnerabilities feature flag enabled. So what's important is that when the feature flag is disabled, you will not show the button because backend will not work. And the other thing is that on GraphQL side, there's no issues with using REST API to generate the export. So I believe you're good to go here.
Okay, so I just need to move the button to the new dashboard, and we should be safe. Okay, good to know. That was my fear that it wouldn't work.
Great. Well, that sounds like something that's achievable in the window that we have, and the earlier the better, because this feels like something that extra eyes on testing would be helpful too. Thanks, Vash. Thanks, Alan.
I think I got the next item.
Go ahead, Wayne.
So releases, everyone correct me on my dates if I got them wrong. So the release is shipped 12/10, 4/22. The deadline for MRs to be merged is Friday before, 4/17. Is that right?
That's a date that has been up for conversation, and I believe that it's usually 2 days before, and I don't think it's a weekday type thing. For as far as I'm concerned, I thought it was going to be the 19th, but we can confirm that. Aviel, Philippe, do you guys have any historical knowledge of when to expect that date to land on?
I want to make sure I get the date right.
My experience is I don't know, the more months I've been at GitLab, the more confused I get. I think that's at least a good thing a good date for us to aim for.
So assume the earliest risky date, like the earliest high risk date of like the 17th, and then hope that it's actually like the 20th instead.
Oh, we got a handbook link that says the 17th.
Okay.
So that's the 17th. We know it takes around 7 days for MRs to be merged. So I'm making sure I'm getting my days of the week right and doing my date math correctly. So that's 4/10. When's 4/10? This week, Friday.
This week.
So not all MRs take 7 days. Some take longer. Some take, to be merged once initially sent. So, and we can also, when submitting the MRs, the closer we get to 4/10, the more we should comment to the reviewers and the maintainer to, hey, this is really important for 1210. Here's the reason why. Give them the link to the issue tracking the customer need, just so they know it. And also reach out to people via Slack as needed after we've given them 2 business days, which is the only idea. So what I'd like to do is just go around. I know we don't have everybody on, but for the changes that are critical for first class vulns and for vuln export, are we on track to submit to the reviewers by Friday of this week? So not to pick on anybody, but Savas, you show up first on the video here for me. So Savas, do you think you're on track?
So I have the group dashboard that is merged, but waiting for the pipeline to be green.
Okay.
Then as soon as that goes live, that goes on master. I have 2 small changes, adding the filter and then the vulnerability count, but that should be a trivial job. And then I can start working on the instance level. So for the instance level, I could submit something, but there I think I depend on the backend. The backend needs to provide me the query for querying the instance level vulnerability. So it depends on the backend, that one.
Okay. And who's working on the backend for that one, or unknown at this point?
There's an MR up for it already.
Okay. Alan? I think all your changes are in. Is that right? All your changes are submitted?
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. I believe everything that I had for first class vulnerabilities were merged. So there is nothing from my side.
Okay. Avio?
So project dashboard, I think, should have everything except multi-dismiss, which I should have an MR for by Friday. Group dashboard, history, we're saying is not MVC, so it should have everything else merged already, again, except multi-dismiss. And the instance dashboard, gosh, this MR has been in review for like 2 weeks, and it has just been such a slow cycle getting people to review. But it is already in review, which means that it is at least in review before Friday. So I'd say everything's in a good place right now.
Okay, awesome. Alexander, you're putting notes in here?
Yeah, I had some work from the vulnerability page itself, and I have one small MR that's in review but almost done, so that should be good. And then there's the multi-dismiss issue that as long as I get or figure out about the project fingerprint and whether I have that, I think it should be good for Friday.
Jonathan, how are yours looking?
I got one. The main MR has been reviewed. That should be merged today. Had to pull the whip flag off of that, and it'll be merged in. The other issue that I've got working on with the confirm by issue, that is going to be submitted for review in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Well, sorry, take that back. In about an hour, once the pipeline finishes running, to make sure it all goes.
Any others on your plate currently that are critical for FCV?
Nothing critical. I think I've got one more issue out there for me, but that's just kind of a refactor more than anything else. So it's not critical to get MVC.
Okay. And I know, did Sam's get moved to someone else? The ones that he had in flight, since he's out this week and next week, if I remember correctly.
Did Sam move? Sorry, didn't understand the question.
Oh.
Just Sam's open MRs. Did he get them all reviewed and closed out, or did anything get kind of transferred to you for ownership, Savash, as part of that conversation? Do you know?
There was only one that I've been tagged. I think it's merged, but I will need to double check.
And
other than that, it's just
okay. Wayne, I can do some spelunking for open MRs as well from Sam.
Okay. And I know Ross couldn't make it today, but Ross is, I think, on track on the database merge one. There's a discussion later today with the database reviewer. There's a bit of a lot of feedback from the, database maintainer, a lot of feedback from the maintainer. And Daniel, this is not a good time for him. So you can ask Daniel later. So it sounds like we're getting close there. Some things may slip past that, and we'll deal with that as appropriate and probably try to speed up the review and maintain process on them. But, it's good to jump on this.
And I'll ask Daniel to update us in the Threat Insights group room around his progress, because he has been very focused on the standalone page, and I don't want to leave him stranded there. I don't know if Alexander or Alan, who have both been contributing to conversations around, supporting the work that he's doing there, if you guys have any insights into blockers or progress there to share. But unfortunately, without Daniel here, we'll just let him share with us asynchronously.
And we're a little over on time, but
yeah,
I think that's okay. So probably good, maybe skip 6 and 7, but Aviel, do you want to give the FYI on your item? I think it's another important one.
Yeah, so when we discovered that the feature flag we have for the first-class vulnerabilities in GraphQL, we can't turn on for one specific project, I found a workaround for that, but got blocked because I found a bug in our GraphQL auth logic. And I've been talking with the GraphQL team on how to test the fix I have for it. So I have a fix, but I need to test it. Testing it has been slow. And I could say, well, what if we don't test it? But that's what someone said originally, and then we had a bug. So I'm going to work on that today. And if I don't have a breakthrough, I'm going to find a different workaround, which I have one in mind that's not ideal, but it will get us there so that we can start UAT.
Thanks, Aviel. So we're over about 2 minutes. I guess we'll discuss issues for plan and breakdown, which nobody's ready to start on those yet anyway, everything else going on. But it's good to be thinking in advance. And Tiago, we'll talk about time frames for the meeting next meeting.
Don't worry about it.
Good stuff. Thanks, everybody.